goes. Just the way it goes. Degrees.
Sadistic Penguin Studios presents Yumper and Svo at the Show podcast with Tom Yumper Garcia.
Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir. The check is in the mail.
And Justin Svo Svoboda.
What, so I gotta sit here and eat dessert alone like I'm fucking Steven Glansberg?
It's almost time, so grab a drink. Get your popcorn ready and get comfortable to hear two guys from Chicago talking movies.
Welcome, everyone, to Yumper and Svo at the Show podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Tom Garcia, a.k.a. Yumper, and with my other co-host, Justin Svo Svoboda. How you doing, Mr. Svoboda?
I'm good, Yump. How are you on this fine Sunday afternoon?
I am very good. Just watched the Sox basically beat the shit out of the Astros for a little bit.
Is it a final yet? I don't think it is.
No, it isn't. They're up 6-1 last time I looked.
Yeah, it's 6-1.
What's up, Spags? So we got a action-packed show for you today. We wanted to move it a little early because, of course, the Sox game, and as well as a wrestling nerd I am, we have WrestleMania tonight and a big day for tomorrow, but we'll be getting into that later on in the show. But you want to get into it, Swole?
Yeah, I'm absolutely ready to go. This is a topic that I'm very, very big fan of, so let's do it.
Cool. So let's get into what we were watching. You want to start us off?
Yeah, so I spent the last 2 nights at the theater with the wife. It's been date night, just us. We went to go see Dungeons and Dragons with Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez. And last night we saw a special sneak preview of Ben Affleck's new movie, Air. He directed the movie. He's a co-star in the movie. Both of these movies are absolutely fantastic. Dungeons and Dragons should have been a summer blockbuster. It was goofy. It was loud. The dragons were cool. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons before in my life, but you don't need to see this movie. And Air was absolutely brilliant. It is a top 3 sports movie without a single minute of sports being played. I loved every single minute of this movie. I love Jordan. I love Nike. Yump knows these things. I love Ben Affleck. He's my favorite actor. This movie was absolute perfection. And I ran into the homie Aloha Mr. Hand while we were there. The wife and I were out going to the movies, and Pete was in the same screening as us, and it was absolutely brilliant. I highly recommend it. I'm going to go see it again this week. What about you, Yump? What have you watched?
So just like to talk about Dungeons and Dragons, like that's a movie that I actually was interested in seeing. And although he's not the son of Kurt Russell, Chris Pine has a lot of Kurt Russell like features that totally reminds me of like Big Trouble in Little China feelings from him. Just like some of the stuff he's saying, it was like totally Kurt Russell vibes I was getting from him.
I don't think you're wrong at all.
Yeah, so I really want to see it. I also want to see Air. You guys have hyped it up, so I'm really excited to see that one. But I also went to the movies with the wife, and we actually saw the chapter 4 of the John Wick series. And I have to say, this is probably the best of the series comparable to the first one. It has a lot of throwbacks to great action movies that we grew up watching, hence The Warriors. I don't want to spoil that part, but you'll notice it right when you watch it. When it happens, you'll realize it because it's a nice homage to it. Keanu Reeves, it's amazing that he gets by with such little dialogue, but is basically showing everything through his emotions in this. I'm a huge fan of Donnie Yen. I mean, you know that, Swell. Like, I watch all his movies.
Yeah.
His English is excellent. Not a lot of people know he's bilingual. well, actually trilingual. He speaks a lot of languages, and he is excellent with his English pronunciation. So it's very, very awesome to see that a crossover star. I mean, he was in this not the Force Awakens, Rogue One. He was in Rogue One as
Yes.
the blind guy
I
who
am one
Force is
with the
with me.
Force.
Force, yes, and the
I'm
Force is
one
with
with the
me.
Force. The Force is that's fantastic.
Yeah, so he's I'm really happy to see him starting to transcend and starting to break through. Maybe we'll see him a lot more. Maybe get on that Jet Li level in the Americas, which I hope he does. But yeah, it's just a excellent movie. I highly recommend it. Spags, I know you're asking about it. It's long. It's about 3 hours long. But Jen, who's not really a big like action star, movies, she really liked it. It's really enjoyable. It's a lot of stuff that you're like, why the hell is this going on when the people are shooting and people are acting normal? I mean, that's the John Wick's movies, and also
Yeah.
John Wick gets hit by like 30 cars in this movie. So I don't know the realism in it. It's just all out action if you want to turn your brain off. I liked it a lot. And to go with that, I actually did a review on the Sadistic Penguins YouTube with Flashpoint. Now, Flashpoint is a movie that it's based in Asia. It's one of Donnie Yen's earlier movies made in 2007. And it's basically about him being a cop and his partner who goes undercover to take down a triad. And they're basically going against a triad of three brothers led by Colin Chow of The Matrix. You might know him as Cypher. All balls to the wall action. The story's actually pretty decent for an action movie. If you don't like subtitles, there's actually a dub version on Prime that you can get for free. The movie's for free on Amazon Prime if you have Amazon Prime Video. Check that one out. You can just look up, if you don't want to even check out the whole movie, look up Colin Chow versus Donnie Yen. That fight scene is like 7 minutes long. Always in like the top 10 of martial arts fight scenes. It's a badass, like it's very graphic and very like a lot of realism to it. Except I mean, there's some wire tricks to it as you can see, but totally worth the time just to check them two out. And I like a lot of Donnie Yen's movies because his fight scenes are realistic. Like you watch this movie, you'll see when he punches somebody, it looks like he's actually punching somebody. It's out there, but I totally recommend these two movies to check out.
I definitely want to go see John Wick. I'm a little surprised that one of our audience members, Spags, hasn't seen it yet. Because that seems right up Spags' alley. But I definitely want to go see it. It's not a movie that I could take Kelly to go see. Yump, you know that. This would be a movie that I went solo to, but I definitely want to see it. And I watched your review for Sadistic Penguin Studios on Flashpoint. When you say Flashpoint, though, my mind automatically goes to DC Comics. And,
yes, I know.
But that's what I thought initially. But yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so check it out if you haven't seen it. Like I said, it's free on Amazon Prime. But those are the movies we saw this week. Let us know what you guys watched at Yumper and Svo on Twitter, or hit us up at the website at sadisticopinionstudios.com. But we have a guest today, a very important guest that actually we have a funny story to tell why we have this guest, and especially about the subject. But Svo, you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, absolutely. From the Hookup on Music, we're bringing our boy, and you might know him as the Sugar Baggy, but we refer to him as Tony. And we're very, very excited to have him on. So welcome to the show, Tony. This is your second time on the show.
Yes, it is. Hello, guys. How's it going?
It's good, man. Welcome.
Welcome. Very, very excited to be here again. Very awesome subject. I'm very excited to share my thoughts on this. It's gonna be a good time.
Yeah.
So what have I been watching recently? 2 movies from 1986. Both, ironically, I happened to pick these and they both came out in November. The very first one I picked here, it's called The Wraith. Have either one of you heard of this movie?
Yes, I've heard of it.
This movie is amazing for multiple reasons. It's got Charlie Sheen, Randy Quaid. It's even got the lesser-known Howard brother, Clint Howard, Sherilyn Flynn from Fatal Instinct. But the reason I picked this movie was because Svo, recently you talked about how awesome Alpha Dog was, and I definitely agree with you. The bad guy in this movie is the director of Alpha Dog. And before he directed Alpha Dog, he directed The Notebook, which I'm never afraid to admit that a little couple tears came down my face in the theater when I saw The Notebook.
You'll never hear a bad word about The Notebook from me.
So it's for a man to direct The Notebook, to then direct Alpha Dog, and then be the bad guy in this 80s classic, The Wraith, which is pretty much like Fast and the Furious meets ridiculous 80s. It's got Ozzy, Motley Crue, Billy Idol on the soundtrack. Definitely worth your time. And the other movie I watched, because we're doing this this musical deep dive on biographies is Sid and Nancy, Gary Oldman's one of his first movies. If not, it's his first movie, directed by Alex Cox, who did Repo Man.
Repo Man,
who you guys recently dug deep on. Another
Mhm.
really, really awesome movie. Later, we're going to talk about one of the movies that you said was a really kind of a tough watch. If that movie's a tough watch, this is a really, really, really tough watch because Sid and Nancy did not have the best ending.
I think so. Yes, you're right. It's Sid and Nancy's a tough watch, but the other movie that I said was a tough watch because you liked the character and you cared about the character.
I know.
Sid Vicious.
Right.
Sid Vicious was a fucking dirtball, right? And Nancy
You're
Spungen.
absolutely right.
Nancy Spungen wasn't any better. It's an absolute fantastic movie. I'm not going to disagree with you at all, but I don't have. I've never had a lot of empathy for Sid Vicious.
No, you're
in that ending.
Right. That was a very bad comparison because you said Sid was a big dirtball. He couldn't even play the bass guitar. But those are the movies I watched.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you bring up that one because I recently watched an interview with Gary Oldman, and he actually hates that role. And I don't think it's because of the whole message of the movie. I think it's because of the way he acts. He says that he wasn't. It's kind of when he was still green, and he doesn't like his performance. He just said his accent is what he hates. So it's kind of funny coming from a guy who's known to basically be a chameleon when it comes to playing characters.
Pretty interesting. I was looking at the other guy who was considered for the role was Daniel Day-Lewis. Interesting to imagine him trying to play Sid Vicious.
And the comparison between the two is like two totally different actors, but two totally guys that are dedicated to their craft and absolutely like perfectionists.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't think Daniel probably would have did heroin knowing him for being a method actor.
I think Sid and Nancy is a movie that probably could have got on the honorable mention list for what we're about to talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I had a good time just trying to pick out the movies that we were doing here, and I was trying to just go off random because I don't know if there's one I haven't seen. So
Sid and Nancy is also another reason why, and stop me when I'm wrong here, that physical media will never fully die. I don't think that's on any streaming services, if I'm not mistaken.
No.
And there are still some movies that you can't find on streaming services. Although, I was goofing around on TikTok earlier this week, and Yumper will get a kick out of this. There's been a breakthrough in the streaming rights for Dogma. Harvey Weinstein is very, very hard up for money, and Kevin Smith got a backer to buy the rights back from him to help pay his legal bills. And he was saying this in an interview at the Smod Castle, which is in Red Bank, New Jersey. And Dogma might be available on streaming services and a Blu-ray reprint at some point. So those $90 copies of Dogma that you have on Blu-ray and DVD, the value might be dropping significantly, just so you guys know.
I still have I think I got it from a Hollywood Video, my VHS of Sid and Nancy.
Yeah.
It's still got, and what's cool is the box has got like the letters for Sid and Nancy are like in gold. But you're absolutely right. I don't see that one play very often.
Yeah.
Definitely one good to have.
I mean, that happens all the time, I think, because just go into like the video game nerd era, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was like a game that was on Dreamcast. And when Dreamcast went away, it was a game that nobody could find. Everybody was making ROMs of it. And like there was I had a copy for Xbox. It got released for Xbox, the original Xbox. And it was worth, like at the time, you could trade that in for 2 new Xbox games. That's how much. I would think it was worth like $120. I was seeing it sold for like $350. I actually had an extra copy that I sold on eBay maybe like 2-3 years ago for like $125. So people were buying like crazy. But then the pop being so popular, they released our digital version over Xbox Live, and all those prices plummeted. Are you gonna have the hardcore collectors that would want the actual physical copies? But still, it's just like it seems to be a trend when like it gets so popular, people want it so bad, and they re-release it, and the value of the thing goes down. So it was only a matter of time, I think.
If you ever want to get a kick, go look at the prices of NCAA football 14 right now.
Yes, that's another one.
Like eBay. Like it was the last college football game EA Sports ever made till next year. And the prices are like $250 for a copy of NCAA 14.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But But the funny thing about this, so this pod, Tony, we planned this pod like last week, and me and Phil were like, "Oh, let's do movie biopics." And then we saw that you had a podcast coming out Wednesday talking about movie biopics. I'm like, "What the fuck?" Did we like great
Well,
minds think
that
alike? I guess. And we're like, "Oh man." So
We had no idea, and we didn't
no,
want to like
and
step
the
on your
thing-
toes.
no, you guys are like, this is like what I would deem you guys are like. This is like party central. So I'm glad to be a part of this. So like when we were doing it just in connection because of that new show Daisy Jones, this is like balls to the wall music biopics, which we haven't really ever did. And that we were more doing like, I think what we were doing was more of like, who did you enjoy doing a biopic? And it was only like 5 to 10 minutes. But then when you reached out to me and you were like, at first I thought you said pick 5. So it took me a good 3 hours to whittle 5. And then I re-looked at your message and you said 4. And I'm like, fuck. So then I went down to 4. So like, but then what I knew was I try to pick ones that I didn't think you guys would pick. So that, because everyone, you know, I'm excited. So I'm very excited.
Yeah. So, you know, spoiler alert, this is not really, I'm not a big fan of biopics, but I do enjoy some of the movies. But I go in with the same mentality for any movie I see. I go in with a clean slate and give it like it's due. It's just not my interest. I love music. I don't know, something about biopics is always, it's never full. Like I love Daniel Day-Lewis, and I watched Lincoln like once. And I mean it's a masterful performance.
Biopics for me, it's more of like, I try to like imagine what they were like and going through while making this music, even if I don't like the band or the artist.
Yeah,
I mean, it's cool when you hear the songs played and like how it's developed, but it's just I don't know.
I
it's
know. I
something
mean, some
I
of
like
it,
creative story and like, and I know a lot of the stuff is dramatized too. That's why I'm like,
well, a lot of it is like
Yeah.
this, you know, it, you know, the up, the down, you
Yeah.
know, that.
But Swole, you want to ask your 3 questions, man, before we get to our movies?
yeah. You know what though, Yump? I think we might have done that with Tony already when he was on for the trivia episode.
Did we, Tony?
Tony,
You did, but if you want to ask me more questions, or if you want to ask me a question, I mean,
well, here
first of all,
let's
I'll just, you know, go on. What are you gonna say?
let's do this at the beginning instead of the end. Then, like, we know that our whole topic is music biopics. What musician or artist would you like to see a music biopic made out of? Like, make a movie made out of?
Ooh.
Like, I can go first. Like, I can tell you this, and no, Yump, it's not. I don't want to see the Blink 182 story on the big screen. Like, I've already read the book Tales from Beneath Your Mama. I don't need to see it like on the big screen. I would like to see a Led Zeppelin like legit biopic made. I would like to see, you know, about, you know, Robert Plant and Jimmy Page meeting. I would like to see, you know, I don't want to see the death of John Bonham, but like I would like to see the story about their rise. And, you know, Thunder of the Gods is a fantastic book about Led Zeppelin. I would like to see a Led Zeppelin music biopic made. How about you guys?
Me personally, I mean, you got, honestly, I think it's something like
Sox win, by the way, 6-3.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say like something like Bob Marley, something with I try to think of a different, you know, an Edgar Winter biopic, you know, everyone wants a free ride. You know, Prince
would be good.
You know, Prince would be a really good one. You know, Bruce Springsteen.
I mean, that's...
you know, but you know, a little pieces, you know, of his, you know, I like when some musical biopics like the Beatles, they had the 5th member, Stu Sutcliffe, they did Backbeat.
Backbeat was fantastic.
That's about a guy who was real, you know, part of the Beatles, but like in a super early period. And I like stuff like that too. You know, deep stuff like that.
I like that. That's a good one. What about you, Yump?
So thinking about a movie that I would go. So I think Lemmy is like super interesting.
Ooh,
from Motorhead.
Motorhead.
I know there was a documentary that came out I think maybe 10 years ago, which I actually watched, which is like it's just Lemmy's being out there. But just like the fact that like the stories people have said about Lemmy just sitting in his underwear, like smoking a bunch of cigarettes, and it's like being like himself. Like a lot of people think he was super rich, and in reality, he really wasn't as rich as people thought. He was pretty hurting for money, you know, towards the end of his life. And then the fact that he went to the Rainbow Room, that was his spot, you know, and to the point where Jen, when she went to California, she went to go to the Rainbow Room to see if he was going to be there, to see if she'll see him, you know, like I would love to see something with him because he's just an interesting character in general,
Yeah.
and it but I don't really know who would be able to, pull off Lemmy.
Who could play him? Well, it would have to be someone completely unknown. I got two for you, another
Mhm.
two for you right here, if you guys are okay with it.
Oh yeah. please.
One Yumper. I do think that the story of Anthony Kiedis and John Frusciante would make a good movie with the trials and the drug addiction and leaving the band and coming back to the band. I do think that would be really really good. And I do think that I would like to see. And I'm not an idiot here, so don't I would like to see a good version of The Dirt made onto the big screen, not a Netflix version of The Dirt.
No,
Like,
a good version would be
I
good.
would like to see that is my I grew up with Motley Crue. I have read that book 15 times and they left out so many cool fucking things from The Dirt that I think could have been in the movie that I just wish yeah.
Well, that's the I remember, buying the Shot at the Devil tape. So, I'm well, and The Dirt was exactly a B Netflix movie that
Yeah.
would look a lot better with some better actors, of course. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You know
I don't
what?
need Machine Gun Kelly playing Tommy.
Yeah, I was
Lee.
about to say like Machine Gun Kelly. But another one that could possibly be one would be Van Halen with the
Yeah,
passing of
that would
Eddie.
be a good one.
Yeah,
The
Van
breakup
Halen would
between
be a
him
good
and
one.
Diamond Dave with Sammy Hagar coming in.
Yeah.
That has everything storybook Hollywood. The trials and
Definitely.
tribulations of them going through as a band.
Definitely.
So I don't know, but those are actually I actually would watch those movies. Like I said, not a big biopic, but in terms of of course I'm gonna watch the Chili Peppers as well.
Yeah,
You know that.
like
But with Lemmy, I'll watch Lemmy. Bob Marley. I love Bob Marley's music.
yeah.
I just like his whole message and
Oh,
the
yeah.
whole the Marley family. I like them. Ziggy.
One thing I always think about that not a lot of people know is before he became the Bob Marley, he moved to Cincinnati for a whole summer and lived with his mom before he went back to Jamaica and worked in a factory. And you think about what those 3 months were like, and this is before P was even a musician. This is like when he's like 19 or 20. And just like little pieces like that you can learn about somebody's life. And that's why even the biopic, you just talked about reading, Blink-182's book or any of those books, you learn a little bit more. And sometimes the biopics can't really get to everything. And that's why sometimes there could be hit or miss.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah. And we'll get into,
Oh, yeah.
more. I think that might be a good cue.
Yep. So let's get into our
Wait,
first
wait,
one,
wait,
gentlemen.
wait, wait, wait,
Yeah,
wait, wait, wait,
yeah.
wait, wait. Did I'm sorry. Do you mean Johnny Cash? Because they've made a definitive music biopic about Johnny Cash.
It's a good segue, Spat.
That is a good segue because
Go
I think it's first up.
Yeah, let's go to our first one.
Anyways, I felt tough, like I'd seen a thing or two, Well, that was till a moment ago. 'Cause I gotta tell you, my hat's off to you now. 'Cause I ain't never had to drink this yellow water you got here at Folsom. This song's for your ward.
Walk the Line, released in 2005, directed by James Mangold, who also directed Copland, Girl Interrupted, 310 to Yoma, The Wolverine. He was the executive producer of Logan, and he's doing a new Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Starring Joaquin Phoenix, Reese Witherspoon, Robert Patrick, and Jenner Goodwin. Movie had a box office of $186 million and a budget of $28 million. So, Tony, since you're our guest, tell us about Walk the Line.
Oh, it's I think it's it's close to being pretty one of the best. I think in musical biographies, definitely a top 10. I think it's Joaquin Phoenix, in the role definitely sells as Johnny Cash. I think going into this movie, you said this movie it came out in 2005. I didn't know if I'm remembering correctly. I wasn't like, wow, Johnny Cash, like all this stuff. Like the movie is what kind of guided me to really start digging deeper into Johnny Cash's catalog. And that's why I like these movies a lot, because every one we're probably going to cover, I learned more music from the movie than I did before I went into it. And that's why I like him a lot, because especially a movie like this, when he's, especially like the deeper cuts that you're not really familiar with, the movie does a good job showcasing them.
What about you, Swell?
This is probably top 3 music biopics for me. I think that I've always loved Reese Witherspoon since the first time I saw her in Fear, but as June Carter Cash, I think she was absolutely perfect. I think that Tony hit it on the head, right? Like I knew about the big hits, but I didn't know about his downfall and his eventual rise again, and his relationship with his parents. I didn't know about his brother dying, and there's always some sort of tragedy that inspires the art here. But I think this is almost as perfect as you can get. In my mind, there is a definitive music biopic, and it's in this top 10. This is as close as you can get to that definitive music biopic.
I would have to agree with both of you. I think this movie is very good in terms of getting, who Johnny Cash was. You said that you were kind of introduced to him like a little bit more with this movie. Spags put it out in our chat. Hurt was the first time I was introduced to him. The cover of the Trent Reznor song, Nine Inch Nails.
Well,
Hurt.
yeah. I mean, that was.
So that got me kind of into it. I'm not a huge country fan, but I do like Johnny Cash. My brother actually is like a big fan of Johnny Cash. One thing I liked about the movie is the random characters. I think Robert Patrick is another actor that doesn't get enough credit for the roles he plays. He plays such an asshole to perfection.
Yeah.
I mean, he kind of shows it in Peacemaker with John Cena,
yeah.
more of a funnier role, but he is a complete his range is excellent. From Davey from The Sopranos, from the T-1000 to Davey to now
Fire in the Sky. You ever see Fire in the Sky?
Yes, that's a great movie as well. He does an excellent job in this movie. Joaquin Phoenix was awesome, and Reese Witherspoon deserved the Oscars she got for this.
Yes.
I did find it like Tony, you mentioned earlier, like they don't always get to they don't put everything in there in movies in terms of the biopics. And one thing I think that they kind of left out that I wish they did in this movie, because I think this movie is great, is the fact that Johnny Cash did a lot of stuff for indigenous people. He was one of the first outspoken artists to do so, and he actually released albums. And up until when the Johnny Cash show was on TV, he was constantly, bringing in indigenous artists, doing indigenous poetry. Like he wanted to show the crimes and atrocities done against reservations, and to the point where actually the country music scene was telling him, "You need to leave."
Yeah,
and he's like, "No, I'm outspoken," and I really appreciate that part of him. Like that's one of the reasons why I like him a lot. But I just wish they would have kind of. I know they're going for a love story with Reese and her, with him and June. But it would have been kind of nice to show like that side of him too, because the role in here they kind of show him as more of a junkie and like a loner, the Man in Black.
They do.
I wish they would have put that to show maybe add a little more depth to the character about his passions. But besides that, like you said, well, this movie is aces in my book.
It's pretty spot on. There's only one other music biopic that I think is like perfect like this. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's just, James Mangold he's a great director. I mean, obviously they're putting him in the front of the new Indiana Jones. Reese Witherspoon does a good job. Even Jennifer Goodwin as the first wife, she does a good job.
And I don't love Jennifer Goodwin. Like I don't dislike her, but I don't love her. But she does a really good job in this movie.
Did you ever watch Big Love on HBO?
I did watch Big Love on HBO about the Mormon sect of
that's for movies for me. It's something as silly as watching her in Big Love and oh, I love Big Love, so I love her in this. But you're absolutely right. Her role isn't like Reese Witherspoon's role.
Well, and she's the wife that he leaves for June Carter, but you feel for her because she did nothing wrong. She didn't cheat on him. She didn't steal his money. He just was a douchebag and not in the right place at the time. And you felt for her, and she did a good job in this movie.
And I think it spawned also, in probably one of the most amazing musical spoofs and, Walk Hard.
Oh, Dewey Cox story. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
I mean, just the way they were able to kind of match it up.
Yeah.
And everyone, I think that was pretty cool too, but great movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the crazy thing about this is Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon actually sang all their songs and there was no dubs. Yeah. So they performed all their songs themselves, which I thought was amazing.
It was amazing.
And to go with what you're saying, Swole, about Johnny Cash's first wife, his daughter went to the screening of this movie and she had to walk out. She thought that Reese and Joaquin were excellent, but she said that she just didn't like the portrayal of her mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all absolutely fair.
Yeah, so but it's kind of funny because her half brother was a producer on this, and he's like, "But it's supposed to be about my mom and dad, you know." But I think it's just weird. But I can see why you see that. But overall, I thought it was a very good movie.
I could see why it would be hard to watch.
Yeah, it's up there. You know, Phoenix Joaquin Phoenix is like kind of stepping into his own in here, showing that he has a lot of range as an actor. You know, singing, and I think he up. Who did he lose? Do you guys know who he lost the Oscar to that year?
I don't.
Uh,
1 second. He lost it. Hold on.
Oh, he lost to Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Yes.
So I mean, that's a stacked line. He had David Strahan.
Capote. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
Was that Capote year? Yeah.
Yeah, Heath Ledger was up.
You
Yeah,
know,
that was
Brokeback Mountain.
you can give it
Even
to any
Hustle
one
and
of those.
Flow, Terrence Howard, that was good.
Yeah, and Good Night, Good Luck. Another movie.
Yeah,
David
big
Strahan.
movie. David Strathairn, I'm a big fan.
Good
Yeah.
year. Good year.
Just tough luck. But you guys ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it.
Boys will have the best producer in the business doing your sessions.
Well, here we go again. I'm the producer of the band. I have complete say about our music, and that's it.
Oh, buddy, don't be silly. No artist has ever been his own producer. Studio time costs a lot of money. Nobody ever gets a record session handed to him without supervision.
We've been down the supervision road in Nashville. Yeah, it was awful, and I'm not ever going to do it again.
1978's The Buddy Holly Story, directed by Steve Rash, who also directed 1987's Can't Buy Me Love, and one of my favorite movies, Son-in-Law.
Heck yeah.
Can't Buy Me Love is one of my favorite flicks. Like
Yeah, I
that's
know.
that's fantastic.
Great movie. That's a great movie. I could talk about that one for a while.
Starring Gary Busey, Dan Stroud, Maria Witchwine, and Charles Martin Smith. This movie had a budget of $1.2 million and a box office of $14 million. So, tell me about the Buddy Holly story.
So the Buddy Holly story is probably the first music biopic that I remember watching. And I remember watching, the scene where they're recording the movie and there's crickets in the studio and they can't find where they are. And that's how they got their name, Buddy Holly and the Crickets. This is pre Gary Busey going off the deep end. And then, what's his name? Is it Charles Martin Smith?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Who was also in one of my favorite gangster movies, The Untouchables.
Yes.
Just completely underrated. This is the movie that made me fall in love with the story of, the Buddy Holly, the Big Bopper. This is another absolute top tier music biopic that tells a very, very important story and the inspiration for one of the best rock and roll songs of all time. I absolutely can't speak enough about Buddy Holly and the Buddy Holly story. Absolutely love it.
That's very awesome to hear. Number one, because you never know when this is one that was definitely, and I think for me, it's always the what ifs in movies. And in this, it's the what if about what could have been.
The coin flip.
The coin. Well, yeah, of course, the coin flip. I always play, and I talk about it all the time, and I play it in my head all the time. What would have happened if that didn't happen? Would he still be alive and be 85, and we would have had 30 albums, and he would have been bigger than the Beatles, But this movie captures this little piece of time, as you stated, the crickets in the garage. And Gary Busey, man, because I'm watching this movie and I'm thinking of Silver Bullet, man. I'm thinking of that Gary Busey. He was drinking beer the whole entire movie, and he's partying with Corey on his his wheelchair. But this is definitely top tier musical biographies. I think great story.
Yeah, so this is one of the first movies I saw too, Swole, in terms of music biopics. Besides another one we're going to talk about later in the show. Gary Busey is excellent here. At the time, he was a totally unknown actor. So when the Buddy Holly family who wanted to have this movie done, they said that no main actor should play Buddy Holly because they want the focus to be on the story, not on who's playing him. So an unknown man at the time, leading actor, Gary Busey got the role. And I watched this again, Tony, the other day because you gave us this list, and I was like, man, you could see the little Buseyisms come out of him, when he's like, hey,
honestly, I watched it a little bit later. So I had watched Silver Bullet first and some of his other Point Break. So when I watched it, I was just like, this is like Busey like taking just a couple steps back, but like you said, you could see it.
Yeah, and like again, in this movie too, he sang his own songs. They played their own instruments, which I thought was amazing considering they weren't trained musicians. It had so much history in it. That they were the Crickets were one of the first bands, if not the first, to perform at the Apollo, an African American club. And when I did research on this, Little Richard said what's depicted in this movie is pretty accurate. What really happened at the Apollo? Pete, they thought that the the building manager thought he was
Yeah.
booking a African American band because he didn't know the Crickets were white. They were white guys from Texas, and he was scared about putting them on the show. But they're like, "We're gonna get paid $1,000 either way if we perform or not." And he's like, "All right." He put them out there, and the crowd loved them, which I think is amazing. And people are always asking at the time when this movie was made, why is it we're talking about Buddy Holly? There's Jimi Hendrix, there's Janis Joplin. They're talking about why weren't biopics made of them? And people like you kind of touched on it a little bit, Tony, saying Buddy Holly had 45 hits before he passed, and he was only 27 when he passed. Like, that's a lot of, like, top 100 hits for anybody to have, let alone career, and he was doing this he was 27 years old. So, he was probably, like, one of the most popular artists out there, and just what could have been. I mean, we'll get into the coin flip a little bit more later, but, like, what could have been what he did, it's just amazing.
When
What
he
could have
punches
he
that guy in the recording booth, when
Yeah.
that's probably one of my, I like I like just Busey being Buddy Holly,
Yeah.
and
The funny
again,
part is
another
that never happened.
option to learn more because honestly, my introduction to Buddy Holly was Stand By Me, every day and like, honestly, if you want to, you could get me just listen to that song, man. I could feel it. It's just him. It's just the little beat in the background. But like what it is for me is the coin flip, when I listen to those songs because they're so innocent in texture, but what ends up happening, it's not so innocent.
Yeah, it's kind of funny you say it's them, but like, so what
Yeah,
got me
like
into this was my grandfather. Like oldies, and we saw this on public broadcast TV.
That's
Like
awesome.
like you say Stand By Me, and I'm like I'm just picturing them like everyday things, and I'm like, my God, I can feel the scene, and like the hair on my arms are standing up, like thinking about that, like wow,
Listen,
it's just
we are, I know we're all, I'm 40, we're all right around the same, we're all around the same age. So like when we're watching these movies, Stand By Me, especially a lot, we're 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And when we go back and we're talking about them now, that's the cool thing that's why I like chopping it up with you guys, because we're feeling back then, but we're also talking about rewatching it now. And you can see and remember some of that back then, even when you're talking about it. Like I could sit here and tell you, just like you're saying about Stand By Me and hearing it. Like that's what's cool about some of these movies.
absolutely.
Yep, totally. So this was actually, if you haven't checked this one out, check this one out. It's actually a pretty decent movie. Purely crazy Gary Busey.
Yep.
But let's move on to our next one, gentlemen.
You're a legend, Fred. You're bloody right I am.
2018's Bohemian Rhapsody, directed by Bryan Singer, who also directed several of the X-Men movies, Art Pupil, and The Usual Suspects, starring Rami Malek, Lucy Boynton, Alan Leach, Joseph Mazzeo, and Gwyn Lee. So we had a budget of $52 million and a whopping box office of $911 million. Tony, tell me about Bohemian Rhapsody.
Ooh, it is a biopic of, well, Queen, but most importantly, Freddie Mercury. I would say by all indications, it's a PG biopic of Freddie Mercury. They do not dig into what I would deem, from a long time, rumors had Sacha Baron Cohen playing Freddie Mercury, and a pretty hard R script from what I was hearing. Bohemian Rhapsody is not that. But that being said, I think Bohemian Rhapsody is a great representation of Queen. It's a good time. Rami Malek is amazing. Everything since Mr. Robot, you can sign me up for. And, I think it's just an all-around good movie.
So I saw this movie purely, like, one, I love music biopics, but I saw it purely because of Rami Malek. Mr. Robot was a show that I absolutely loved. And And the thing is that Rami Malek wasn't even the best character or the best actor in Mr. Robot. It was Christian Slater. But I think that this was a good representation. The recreation of Live Aid at Wembley Stadium, I thought was done really, really well. Yes, it was watered down. They didn't talk a lot about his relationships and the shenanigans on the road. They only touched upon it briefly. And yeah, Sacha Baron Cohen was supposed to play a way more out there Freddie Mercury, where it dived a little bit deeper into those shenanigans that he, had on the road. But still, I think, if the job was to introduce a younger audience to the music of Queen, then they successfully did that with this movie. Is it in the upper echelon like Buddy Holly and Walk the Line? No, not at all. But it introduced a whole new generation to some pretty damn good music, just like Wayne's World did in 1992.
It's kind of funny you say Wayne's World because not a lot of people know that. Well, now you might know, but Mike Myers actually has a cameo in here as one of the
record executives.
Record executives, yes. And the funny thing is, the song he listens to is Bohemian Rhapsody, and he's like, "I don't understand it.
I don't get it at all."
Which is kind of funny, that the guy who made it popular in '92, brought Queen popular again in '92, is the guy playing the record executive that says, "I don't understand it."
Yep.
This movie. So I think Rami Malek is excellent in this movie. I think, the general basis of the movie is good. I love that they play a lot of the tunes. The concert at the end is like beautifully shot.
Yeah.
The story of him, it's kind of it's a tragic story of Freddie Mercury. Yeah, and they should have gotten to a lot more of, his trials and tribulations. But then again, this was produced by his bandmates.
It was produced by Queen. Yep.
So I can understand why they didn't want to do it. They did also, just me. I think Rami Malek was excellent, but I think they made him look a little too goofy with the fake teeth. I mean, I wish they would have toned it down just a little bit because I mean, it's just like I watched the scene today again, and it's just
the
like
cap teeth.
Yeah, it's like kind of ridiculous. It's kind of like out there, like ridiculous. Like I know Freddie had big teeth, but it wasn't that like obnoxious to me.
But I do love that they talked about him being like, about his upbringing and about his ethnic background and about his growing up. Like they touched on that stuff. They touched on, him working at the airport before, I dug that aspect of it. I just felt that it was watered down, like
totally watered down. And
go
ahead. Oh, go ahead.
I'm a huge Queen fan. I like a lot of the deep cuts on a lot of these albums, and the movie pretty much is on the surface, like you said, a good introduction to the band.
Yeah, it's like Apple Music Essentials, right? You get the hits, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, but then I always remember, I think somebody showing up when I was like 10 or 11 with the Mighty Ducks 2 soundtrack, and it had "We Will Rock You" and "We Are the Champions" at the top of that soundtrack, and everyone had that gold greatest hits Queen album and the black greatest hits album, and that's pretty much what this movie is. Like you said, there's a couple things in the movie, me being a music purist, like they're doing "We Will Rock You" and he's got the mustache and the short hair, but that really didn't happen. It was really, they had the long hair still when he made that. But that's the little stuff that really is the music fan in me. But when I sat back and I watched it and I went and seen it with my wife, I didn't walk out and I wasn't like, that stinks. I was like, that was good. I was entertained.
Do you know why? Because do you know why you felt that way,
Why?
Tony? I almost called you Chalsa again, and that hasn't been your fucking Twitter handle for forever. But do you know why? It's because you're not an asshole, right? The people that nitpick these things, like, yeah, there are things that I picked up on, and there's another movie coming up here that I have like some beefs with about historical accuracies. But like the people that like nitpick these things are the people that like drive me fucking crazy, right? Like it's okay to look for like I get being a fan and wanting it to be accurate because it's something that you love, but this movie wasn't made just for you. And you might feel that it was made for you, but it was made for millions and millions of other people.
Well, let's take for instance, I see a lot, we work, and at the end of the day, you want to sit down and put your feet up. At the end of the day, when I sit down and put my feet up, I'm not a freaking movie critic. I just want to enjoy a movie and relax.
Right.
If you really want me to bust down movies and be a movie critic, we could all play that game. But like the name of the game is to enjoy a movie and feel something. And this movie, made me feel like it was a good time to, like Queen.
I agree. Like if like it's a good movie. It's an entertaining movie. It's a great introduction to Queen again. Not the best music biopic, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, you guys pretty much summed it up pretty well there. Two of the things, another thing I thought was kind of funny is Joseph Manzello, who is I think he plays John Dinsmore in this movie.
You mean in Bohemian Rhapsody he plays the bass player.
Yes.
John
John Densmore. John Densmore, I think.
John Densmore is the drummer from the Doors.
John Denmore's from the Doors. You're getting music biopics mixed up. Yup, God.
It's John.
His name?
Got me on the
as long as you don't get Ray Manzarek.
John Deacon.
Which is crazy because real funny on the first album he was called Deacon John, and then on the second album he switched it to because he thought it'd be cool, like Freddie Mercury. I'll be Deacon John, but then he went back to John Deacon on the second album. But yep, John Deacon.
Well, there's only one Freddie Mercury, so but the fact that he was played by Tim from Jurassic Park cracked me up. And there's a story that when he had to wear several wigs for his hair, and Steven Spielberg stopped by the set, and he was there, and he like went up to him, and Steven Spielberg was like, "Have I met you before?" And he's like, "Yeah, I was in your movie Jurassic Park." He's like, "Oh my God." He's like, "I didn't recognize you," which I thought was hilarious. Another interesting fact about this was the movie kind of depicts like Queen was like on the top when the Live Aid concert happened, and in reality they were kind of dwindling in popularity in the US. Even though after everybody says the Live Aid concert is probably one of the greatest live concerts ever created, it still didn't boost their sales. And Wayne's World actually did by that car ride of Bohemian Rhapsody, which I think is kind of funny. That kind of boosted. I'm sure this movie boosted even more. But such a epic band that was kind of on the outs when that concert happened, and then it took another movie in '92 to boost it after Freddie had passed already.
Well, it was what it was. I mean, '80 they came out with the album The Game, and it's got Another One Bites the Dust. It's got Crazy Little Thing Called Love. Pretty big hit. But then what ends up happening is Freddie starts going to clubs. He likes the dance scene. And a lot of their 82, 83 starts doing a little bit of dance music into which alienates that Bohemian Rhapsody fan base.
Which is weird because
kind of lost America is really what it was.
Which is weird because every band went through that disco. Like the Rolling Stones went through a disco phase, right? Like it's bizarre.
Queen gets labeled somewhere between, I've heard, hard rock. Some songs are pretty heavy, but then they're also kind of fantastical. There's some prog. They actually are a lot like the Beatles in a way where all four guys wrote songs. And all four guys were actually equal contributors to the songs. Like Freddie, every album, a lot of people don't know, is the guitar player sings a song and the drummer always sang a song or two every album. So Freddie, being this huge personality, was not big enough to say, hey, you guys could sing a couple songs too, and I'll sing on the background. Which I always found Freddie to be amazing in that way, that he could step out of himself and kind of like.
I like to liken them more to like a Coheed and Cambria than the Beatles.
Yeah, I mean, they could be that too.
So
Rush. Yeah, I don't know.
Last point on this before we move on. Tony, you brought up how they all contributed. I wanted to get this in. So in the movie, there's like a running gag, you could say, with the song "I'm in Love with My Car."
Yes.
And Mike Myers says in his little spiel, hey, what's wrong with I'm in love with my car? It's a great tune. In reality, the band hated that song. 3 of the band members hated that song.
Yeah.
And that was actually made a little turmoil between the band, because Roger Taylor, who wrote that song, was like, come on guys, we gotta include this in there. And they're like, all right, we'll just throw it on the B-side of Bohemian Rhapsody. Bohemian Rhapsody made so much money from just the single sales that he got a ton of royalties because he was a writer, and that pissed off the band members too. Like, what the hell? This guy is just getting money off.
What's crazy is they were so pissed off, but it's still on the album. You know what I mean? Like you think of things today, and 3 out of 4 people say no, it's not making it on the album. But like that's what was crazy,
right?
Definitely, it's just crazy how like things like that play out. But
that kind of stuff.
Definitely a good movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it. But let's move on to our next one, gentlemen.
If America's Most Wanted blew up, you pay me the advance for the follow-up. Now, is that not what the fuck you said?
That is what I said. But it is more complicated than that, Cube. Right there are metrics.
Come on, Brian. I got a baby on the way and a house I just paid for off the strength of what you told me. I mean, you gave me your word.
Q, would you just calm down?
Calm down.
I am just trying to give you what you want.
You not? Now, I've been did the work. I gave you the product. Give me my money, Brian.
My hands are tied.
Straight Outta Compton, released in 2015, directed by F. Gary Gray, who also directed Friday, Set It Off, The Negotiator, and The Italian Job. Starring O'Shea Jackson Jr., Corey Hawkins, Jason Mitchell, Neil Brow, Aldous Hodge, and Paul Giamatti. The movie had a budget of $28 million and had a box office of $201 million, making it the second highest biopic after Bohemian Rhapsody. So I know you were really excited to talk about this one. Tell us about Straight Outta Compton.
So this is my wheelhouse, man. I like pop punk music and gangster rap. Like that's my wheelhouse. I grew up with NWA. I grew up with Ice Cube and Tupac and Biggie. And this spoke to me. This is the movie that I was referring to when I was the guy that was picking out historical inaccuracies in the movie. There's a scene later on in the movie where Dr. Dre walks in and he's watching Tupac record, and Tupac's recording a song called Hail Mary, which came out on Tupac's last album, Machiavelli. And that was his last album. And Tupac gives him a song from All Eyes on Me, or Dre gives him a song from All Eyes on Me to record. I'm like, nah, that's not how this went. Those albums are out of order. But I digress. I think that this movie is perfect. I love F. Gary Gray, the way he handled this. I love that the way he made LA look during the riots and the Rodney King, trial. The portrayals of these characters, O'Shea Jackson Jr., I think, was perfect as Ice Cube, his father in real life. And then Aldous Hodge. I love this movie. I think that this is one of the better music biopics out there. But that's just me, and I'm a little biased. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Tony.
Great movie. Definitely blown away with by it the first time I seen it. In every music biopic, I like to look at a little bit of some of the cheesy things just to have a good time. And Paul Giamatti delivers it for me in this movie.
As Jerry Heller, yeah.
Yes, because number one, it's Paul Giamatti, and I love Paul Giamatti. Number two, every one of these movies has got like a scum or trash hiding behind this, and you need somebody to play that role. And I think Giamatti played Jerry Heller really, really well. I definitely, I also, because of this movie, I was very excited, and I watched the Tupac one. What was that one? All Eyes on Me.
Don't get me.
No, started. I know it's not. Listen. I watch movies sometimes just to laugh and make fun of them. So, like when I was 10, when we would get together at 13 or 14, we would just sit there and laugh and point and laugh. No, I like it. I'm watching it because it's good, and it's not a good movie. This movie is a good movie.
Yeah.
This is a good biopic. This, as you stated, all those actors do a really, 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 really good job.
So I totally agree with you. I think it's a very good biopic. I'm a sucker for Paul Giamatti too. Sideways is like one of my favorite movies, to the point where I actually read the book on it. It's totally
left the movie theater and went and got a jug of wine. And it was in college, and I was like, man, I just want to drink wine.
So like Swole, you mentioned how O'Shea Jackson Jr. portrayed his dad, and when doing research for this, I found out that he went through 2 years of acting lessons to do this. Ice Cube is very, very against nepotism, and he told his son, if you want to do this, you're going to have to do it the right way. And that's one of the reasons why Eazy-E Jr. wasn't cast as Easy, because it just didn't work out for his audition. And he was upset about it, but the person who actually played Eazy-E in the movie became his acting coach, and now he's trying to get roles in acting, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah.
One thing, like inaccuracies in this movie, I could see Swole, like you, what you're saying in certain things, especially the fact that they make it seem like Dre just thought up of Nothing But G thing, like
right, like out of thin air.
Yeah, when it's actually a sample.
Right.
I thought it was cool that the person who scratched for Dre on that did the scratching with the records was actually Jazzy Jeff.
Yeah,
which from Fresh Prince era was actually probably one of the best DJs of his era.
I think the other thing that I don't like, and we talked about it in Bohemian Rhapsody, is that this movie was, I don't want to use the term whitewashed, but they looked over some things, right? Like Dr. Dre beat the shit out of his wife.
So that
And
was in a
they
3. So yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
they didn't talk about it. Now there's a director's cut, like, but it's still just mentioned. It's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like like Dre and Easy and Ice Cube kind of has like stayed out of like trouble, but Dr. Dre and Easy E had some issues and had some run-ins with the law, and they kind of just brushed over them.
So it wasn't his wife. It was Dee Barnes, the anchor, reporter, that asked him a question. And he smacked the shit out of her.
Right, but there was also an incident with Nicole, his wife, that they didn't touch on.
I think so. I like this movie, but I also think it was a love letter of Dre to himself.
Oh, for sure.
Because
for sure.
It was a lot of like Dre did all this, and I'm like, it didn't happen. I mean, it's Hollywood, but and like they included No Vaseline, which of course they're gonna include because Ice Cube was one of the producers. But you could have included, a real motherfucking G's on this one too, because
Yeah, there was no
that was
easy no easy solo stuff at all. Like it went like from NWA, and then it went to like him producing other stuff for Ruthless Records, Dre solo stuff, Cube solo stuff, no easy solo stuff at all. And then a brief mention of how brilliant he was in like his discovery and production of Bone Thugs and Harmony. Like just a real brief, like touched upon it when he's dying in the hospital. I mean, it is all about Dre. That's good, Spax. That's good. I appreciate that. But yeah, no, it was just it's good. They skipped on some stuff and there was some inaccuracies, but I still liked it. I liked that they made Dre look like a tool in World Class Wrecking Crew early on in the movie. Because him and Yellow were both kind of like, I don't know, lame in the World Class Wrecking Crew with the satin purple jackets and but I talked about this in earlier movies. This movie was a love letter to Los Angeles, like it really was, and it made the city look good, and it made But yeah, I think this is a fantastic biopic. Still not the definitive one in my book, but a really, really good one.
Yeah, it totally was. Can you hear me okay? I kind of broke out for a second.
I got you, yeah.
I hear you.
So on top, yeah, just a total love letter to Dre, like you were saying. It's a good one. They should have mentioned more of Easy solo stuff in there. I found it kind of interesting that when doing research for this, Jerry Heller actually spoke on this and said the way he depicted how we broke up in the movie, it's completely a lie. But I'm not going to talk about it because Eric's not here to give his side of the story. I also thought it was it's kind of fucked up but still kind of funny that Jerry Heller has come out publicly and said he regrets telling Eazy-E not to kill Suge Knight, which I thought was like, what?
Man.
That's
And one thing I thought they left out that is vaguely mentioned in this movie, and he was such an integral part of NWA, is Arabian Prince. Arabian Prince was like they were basically working on Arabian Prince's equipment when they were doing those studio sessions. He said he was cool with it, but I mean they should give the man his props just for that. But I thought that leaving him out was like he's not just like a little person. He kind of was there from the beginning.
You could have had like a mention at least, like because they mentioned DOC in it, and like that was like the first artist on Death Row Records. Like that really had nothing to do with the story, but they still talked about DOC because he was part of like Suge introducing them to the rest of the group. But yeah.
But overall, good movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Very good.
All right, let's move on to our next one.
I'm Tina Turner. My husband and I just had a fight. I'm supposed to open at the Academy tonight. I have 36 cents on a mobile card. But if you would give me a room, I swear I will pay you back.
What's Love Got to Do with It? Released in 1993, directed by Brian Gibson, who also directed The Juror, Poltergeist 2, and a bunch of music videos. Starring Angela Bassett, Lawrence Fishburne, and Raven Kelly. The movie had a budget of $15 million and made a box office of $39 million. Tony, tell me about what's love got to do with it.
Ooh, it's Tina Turner. It's her, pretty much her life story, her involvement with that imbecile Ike Turner. Pretty much generally, if I'm not mistaken, this is one of the first musical biopics I ever seen. I think I was like 11 when this came out. It came out in 1993. I think with this one, what it was again, right out of the gate, the performance by Angela Bassett is what the movie is generally what it's leaning on. I also think Lawrence Fishburne does a great job as Ike Turner. He is not nice, and definitely portrays that in this movie quite a lot. But overall, the movie generally, for me, it's overall just like her overcoming a huge entire struggle while also having to deal with this person who is kind of helped her, not really helped her, because she's the one with all the talent. A lot of different moving pieces.
So I just watched this recently, like we talked about in our group chat, for the first time in forever. Like, I saw it when I was younger, and this movie's fucking hard to watch. Like, this movie's hard to watch. And when I say hard to watch, I don't mean it's a bad movie, because it's a fucking fantastic movie. But the shit that Tina Turner had to deal with Ike, and I'm gonna argue with you here a little bit, Tony. Ike Turner was a fucking talented songwriter, but Tina was the majority of the talent. And she was the show, right? She was like what brought people in.
Yeah.
But this movie's hard to watch. And the audio clip that Yump used. Once again, I don't know the audio clip Yump's going to use until I hear them on the show. The audio clip was the scene that stood out to me, where she's at the desk of this hotel, and he just beat the shit out of her, and she's begging for a room, and the hotel, like the in the lobby, the guy at the desk was like, "I know who you are, Miss Turner. We got you." And that's when she like left. But then you're worried, because the next scene, or 10 minutes later, he wants to talk to her in the car of a parking lot, and you think that she's just going to get sucked right back into it. This movie was fucking good. It was hard to watch. It was painful at parts. But then she comes out and she becomes one of the biggest singers like in the 80s, like just a brilliant voice. It's a really good fucking music biopic. And Lawrence Fishburne is fantastic in this movie. Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, totally. And funny thing is, he turned down this role several times until they cast Angela Bassett, and then he's like, okay. Because if you remember, him and Angela Bassett were actually in Boys in the Hood.
Yeah.
As a separated couple. He played Cuba Gooding Jr.'s Trey's mom. But this movie is ridiculously hard to watch. Watching it again, if you have PTSD with this thing, with abuse and whatnot, it's hard. It's triggering. It's very, very brutal. And I think they pushed that
like the whole movie. Like I grew up around, unfortunately, unfortunately some women who had been abused, and they looked at this movie as more of like a ticket to getting out of that. Yes, you have to watch some of that stuff, but it's like the opposite of Seven. At the end, she pretty much puts her middle fingers up and she's dancing on the stage. And honestly, I think she has her best success after she breaks away from him. She's also at Live Aid with Mick Jagger, and she is larger than life. And yes, I mean, that's, but let's really be honest. James Caan isn't really great in The Godfather, and he does really the same exact stuff Ike Turner does. And we don't really say, well, The Godfather's tough to watch in these certain spots. And I know it's like that in this movie. I just like the overcoming of all that.
I mean, that's a really, really good point. I think like we talked about like Straight Outta Compton and Bohemian Rhapsody, like whitewashing or skipping over things. This movie doesn't fuck around and skip over anything. Like, like Ike Turner was a fucking dirtball, and they don't sugarcoat it, and they don't make it out to be.
Scene when they're in the record, like they're at home, and she mouths off to him, and he clears out the whole entire room, and it's just them two in the recording booth. I mean, But that's where
Very
I
hard to
believe
watch, yeah.
she really deserved, or they both deserved, honestly, Academy Awards,
Agreed.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Yeah, but see, the one thing I did find interesting is that she has come out and said that she wished this movie was more truthful in her portrayal, which I think is kind of strange. Of course, Ike, before he passed, said, this is all done. It's like the story's totally misconstrued. He had the backing of Phil Spector saying the same thing, but I mean, Phil Spector was in jail for killing
That's
somebody.
a great character
He's a
witness, by the
good
way.
guy. He's
That's
good.
a great character witness.
Yeah, but I wish Tina would elaborate on what she means by
Yeah.
she wish it would be a little bit more
Yeah.
fact. Like, I don't know if they dramatize a lot of it, but she said that they didn't actually show what she went through it truthfully, which I think is kind of strange. But the message was put across. It was strange that well, it wasn't strange. It was actually good that they cast Angela Bassett as Tina Turner because they had Halle Berry and Whitney Houston actually in the mind for the role, and I don't think any of them could pull it off.
No way.
Ike Turner was his role was up when Lawrence Fishburne kept turning it down. They approached Eddie Murphy and actually Ernie Hudson, which I thought Ernie Hudson could pull it off because I think Ernie Hudson's a bigger dude. But I'm totally glad Lawrence Fishburne got the role. It shows his range as an actor. Another person we don't talk enough about. I know he's been talked about the past two shows, Swole, but another actor that's totally underrated is Lawrence Fishburne and the roles he can play and just the range. And this movie, like I said, it's very, very good. It's just a tough watch,
It is,
but
definitely.
Definitely recommend this one if you haven't seen it.
Absolutely.
And Spags, you said it perfectly. It's a really sad movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very sad.
But also really inspiring, like with the performance at the end with like her biggest hit of her career.
Yep.
I mean, even that to this day, like I'll put that song on and her voice, like especially when she's leading it before it really kicks in, what's love got to do with it? And I'm thinking of the movie and what she went through with Ike, and in that song, the lift up from it, it's definitely. But as you stated too, it's a lot of hard stuff to watch to get to that.
Well, and the scene that you talked about in the recording booth,
Yeah,
like,
that's
Yeah. Again, of Lawrence versus Viking. Yes, Filoni of Lawrence versus Viking. And also, we have some breaking news in the wrestling world. Apparently, WWE is being sold to a UFC parent endeavor.
Really?
Yeah, so they're saying that the deal could be finalized by tomorrow, and it's maybe about $9 billion.
Oh,
could be the price tag. I don't know.
Is that a lot?
It's extremely a lot. But that's kind of crazy that today's WrestleMania and tomorrow they might be sold to another company. But let's move on to our next one, guys.
I see it all, Ray. Like,
what the hell happened to you in the desert, man?
Ecstasy.
Let's get a rock and roll
madness.
band together, make $1 million
So much
bucks.
stuff, Ray. Got tons of songs.
Things are about to explode, Jim. You can feel it in the air. People want to fight or fuck, love or kill. Vietnam is right out there, man. Sides are being chosen. Everything's gonna flame, man. The planet is screaming for change, Morrison. We gotta make the myths.
The Doors, released in 1991, directed by Oliver Stone, who also directed JFK, Natural Born Killers, Platoon, and Born on the 4th of July. Starring Val Kilmer, Meg Ryan, Kyle MacLachlan, Frank Whaley, Michael Madsen, and Kevin Dillon. The movie had a budget of $38 million and made only $34 million at the box office. Swole, you just said you finished this one. Tell us about The Doors.
This movie is fucking ass cheeks, bro. This movie is ass cheeks. The performances in this movie, like Val Kilmer is really, really good. Meg Ryan, really, really good. Kyle MacLachlan as Ray Manzarek, the kid from St. Rita, the Southside kid, really, really good. Oliver Stone was on fucking acid when he made this movie. This is not a movie about the Doors or about their descent into fame or their music. It's about fucking Jim Morrison being a nut job. And I feel like Oliver Stone went on this weird mushroom trip throughout most of the mid 90s and late 90s, with JFK and this, and then part of Natural Born Killers. Part of Natural Born Killers is coherent and I like it. But this is not my favorite music biopic. I love the performances and I love Val Kilmer. You'll never hear me say anything bad about Val Kilmer, but this music biopic is not for me.
Tony?
I love it for everything that you just said. I love it. I love how ridiculous it is. Like it is like, and again,
goofy.
You're talking to somebody who, again, 11 years old. I'm at Suncoast Video, and I just heard the Doors, and I go up to my mom and I go, "Can you buy this for me on a Sunday?" I had school the next day. I'll always remember. And I went in the basement and I watched it by myself on the VHS cassette. And 11 years old, and as you just said, a huge acid trip, and I don't even know what the hell that is at the time. Man, the movie's out there. And I think that's why it's another movie that, of course, I don't know if I've met anyone who really likes it a lot. But the performances, Val Kilmer is Jim Morrison. He does an amazing job as Jim Morrison.
And you're not wrong.
Meg Ryan, I could have did somebody different than her. She could have been a little bit better cast. I like Crispin Glover showing up as Andy Warhol.
I hated Crispin Glover as Andy Warhol. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And he's like,
"It's so stupid.
It's so stupid."
But there's a line in this movie where he's in the recording booth and he tells the guy to come in there and suck a fart out of his ass. And like for some reason, that line in the movie, it always stuck with me because I don't know why you would put that in the script. Oliver Stone, though, man, I mean, I think he went for it somehow, as you stated, somewhere being an acid trip and somehow being trying a love story to his version of the Doors.
Like he writes, like he is capable of writing coherent movies, right? Like I think Platoon is probably one of the greatest Vietnam movies ever made.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't feel like someone just took LSD or heroin. But like this, and then there are scenes.
You gotta ride the snake, man. You gotta ride the snake.
Well, there are scenes in JFK too that I think are very, very much like just like an edited scene or a deleted scene from the Doors. Like it is bizarre. It is out there. It is not a proper music biopic.
No, I mean, my favorite scenes in the movie are, I think he does a really good job when they're on stage. When they're doing 5-1 on stage. And everything's breaking up, like that kind of stuff. But when he's out in the desert, that's why Wayne's World 2 is so great. When they when he's like the naked Indian guy. I mean, like all that stuff was, especially in the beginning when they're doing the end, and he's in the not the castle. He's like in the rocks or whatever, and he's like all the lights are all going. I mean, a little bit is really too much. You're not wrong.
It's like I get it, man. Like Jim Morrison was out there. This music was out there. He experimented with all kinds of drugs, and like my music tastes have evolved from like the music that you grew up with your parents. Like I grew up on rock music and classic rock, and then it evolved into the stuff that I liked on my own. So I grew up with the Doors and listening to their music, and like this movie is fucking cheeks, bro. Like. I'm sorry, man. I know this was one of your picks, and I didn't want to come on here and dog it. But I just finished it.
The thing about me and movies is that it all depends. This movie is strictly when I was 10, 11, 12. So like that's when I tune back to it. I always go back to that time period. But is it a greatly filmed movie? No. It's pretty much what you just said, an acid trip. So if you're not looking for that, man, this movie is not for you. But Val Kilmer's performance, though,
and I don't.
That's why, honestly, I knew you were. I mean, honestly, I set you up for all this because I knew you were going to say all of this.
And like
that being said, I also knew that you loved Val Kilmer, so I was trying to see how you were going to handle all this.
I do love Val Kilmer. I don't know if Val Kilmer's ever made a movie that I've honestly disliked.
I mean, you mentioned last week, Real Genius, man, an amazing movie. Top Secret's one of my favorites.
Top Secret, and honestly, like I'm gonna get shit for this. He's one of my favorite Batmans. Like I don't think
that Batman. I was in the movie theater, man. I was there. I saw Jim Carrey. I still get goosebumps. It was a good time, man, and he did a good job.
He did.
But what ended up happening was when Clooney came, it kind of soured.
Don't
the last one, which sucked because honestly, even the sound, it was a good movie. But you're right. It's very Oliver Stoney, and in not the good way.
Well, and then I think he came down off the acid trip, and that he can still make coherent movies because we talked about The Savages a couple weeks ago on an episode, right?
Yeah.
Like he can still make coherent movies, but like I don't know if it's just like, oh, I'm going to be artsy and make a movie or a scene this way.
I hate the ending of the movie. I hate that music that's playing when they're at the graveyard, and it's like I just hate that stuff, and I hate the way they just have him in the tub at the end. I just think they could have wrapped it up a little bit better than that, but You know, but you're not wrong. It's I like it for its cheesiness. I don't like it for its great qualities.
Well, if you're saying that you like it for its cheesiness, then you're right.
It's
Like,
loaded with
you're
cheesy.
right.
It's loaded with cheesiness, man.
You know who hasn't said a word about this movie is Yump, and I want to hear what he says.
I hate this movie, Tony.
I knew you were. I mean, both of you guys really, really hate Scarface.
No, it has
no.
That.
I don't hate. Like, I need to clear this air. I don't hate Scarface. I don't think Scarface holds up.
Ask you both: is this movie better or worse than Scarface?
I mean,
I say Scarface is better.
I say Scarface. Scarface is better.
Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah.
I
mean, once again, we're comparing a Porsche to a Ferrari. But like, good Lord, yeah, Yump. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man. Take the stage, buddy.
It's totally okay. So one of the reasons that I'm a huge fan of Val Kilmer, I do like some Oliver Stone movies. One of the reasons that kind of like twisted my perception of this movie is like, so you kind of said it, when I was introducing this movie, about Ray Manzarek being a Southsider from St. Rita.
Well, to St. Rita, like, yeah.
When I was 19, he actually performed. 20. I was actually 20. He performed a free concert at my high school.
Really?
With the Doors of the 21st Century.
Really?
It was him and Robbie Krieger. Yeah, they came and did it for free as a way to give back to Rita. And my brothers, my mom actually took pictures with Ray, because my brother was actually in the high school band, and he totally was like so cool with my mom, and Robbie Krieger was there. Ty Dennis was on drums, and I forget who was on bass. It was the guy who did the Rod Stewart, "If You Think I'm Sexy" song. I can't think of his name at the top of my head, but they were awesome. But before the show, they actually had Chet Kopic on stage, and he was asking him just a bunch of interview questions, and he asked him about this movie. And I'll never forget the way Ray was already drunk because he drank like 3 bottles of wine. But the way he stopped, like he was kind of slouching, he stopped, looked at him, and was like, "That movie," he goes, "Val Kilmer, great actor, nothing the way Jim was in real life. That movie was horrible." Like, so that always stuck with me when I think about this movie. Like, and just going on, he was very outspoken about how he didn't like the movie in general. It's kind of like, it's out there. Like, I like the stage performances are nice, but there's also like shit that doesn't make sense. Like when Ray happens to just look at Jim and he watches him doing a native dance, indigenous dance. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? And like that part was like, what is going on here? They love the performance of Val Kilmer. Actually, the Doors members, surviving Doors members, has said, his voice, he actually sings most of the songs, and when there are close-ups, was actually very good, and his performance in terms of like his energy he brought was great. But I don't know what the fuck Oliver Stone was doing in terms of a biopic movie,
bro.
I just don't think it was really it wasn't that great. Like, and Val Kilmer couldn't even save it.
It was
for me.
It was fucking cheap.
And I tried to like it because I like the Doors. Like I
do too, man. I love the Doors.
It just wasn't for me, man.
Oh God, it's so cheeks, bro. Like I can't do it.
I mean, do you think it would have been better? I'm looking here. John Travolta and Richard Gere were thought of as Jim Morrison.
No, I don't. No. You know what would have saved this movie?
Not Oliver Stone.
Not Oliver Stone, right? This is not Oliver Stone's wheelhouse. Like, that's what would have done it.
Or just shot it more straightforward and no Native American dancing when he's on the stage.
I think he just tried to go into the Morrison Lizard King persona.
The psychedelics, yes, like,
which is fine, but like it just it was so much big part of the movie that made no sense to me. Like, I mean, you could have told a beautiful story. Like Morrison he died. He's part of the 27 Club. Like that could have been like a big thing. Like he was gone way too soon, and I wish they would have put more emphasis on that. And it just, I mean, they kind of dove into it too when like the band sold their rights to certain songs just to make money. When they had the light commercial.
The movie was, I mean, I think it's kind of like, as we were talking about, Bohemian Rhapsody was 70% Freddie, 30% the rest of the band. This was like 90% Jim, 10% the rest of the band. I mean, you got Frank Whaley playing the guitar. You got Matt Dillon from Entourage playing the drums.
I always remember Frank Whaley from Career Opportunities.
From Career Opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
But let's also not trivialize Matt Dillon as just Johnny Drama from Entourage because he's worked with Oliver Stone a bunch of times.
Yeah, Platoon.
And
The Blob
Platoon.
remake.
Yeah, like I love Matt Dillon. And I mean
Dillon's
Johnny
great.
Drama is my favorite role of his.
Kevin Dillon.
Kevin Dillon, not Matt Dillon. Yeah,
That's
sorry.
my fault.
Yeah, he's also in that movie No Escape with Ray Liotta. That
Great
was,
movie.
Okay.
But yeah, it just wasn't for me. But I get why you like it. I just like all the psychological shit he was trying to go for. Like, and I'm into those kind of movies.
Fucking-
I just think it's not for me. Wasn't worth the Doors movie.
That fucking god awful Thanksgiving dinner scene, like where
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious.
you ruined my duck.
Dead bird, dead. He
Like,
smashes it with his
shut up.
His boots. Did you?
Yeah, it
Well,
was-
that's where she was bad because right before that scene, they're outside and she's like, "Did you take the acid?" And he's like, "Yes, ma." And he's like acting really stupid. Like there was some stupid stuff in there. When he's in the when he locks her in the closet, I don't really
Tarvel.
think it happened like that. I
His
don't
name is
really
Tarvel Baloney.
think he's like on stage and she's like in the closet and the fire's going. No, I don't think so.
Oh my god.
No.
Yeah, this is that. Baloney, I want you to watch this movie and tell me what you think about it tomorrow.
Do you like I didn't know this about Jim Morrison until today when I was doing research for this. Like Yump's gonna roll his eyes here, but you know Jim Morrison went to Florida State and was arrested at a Seminoles football
Oh
game.
God.
Like he was arrested at a Seminoles football game for public intoxication.
That's on point with Jim Morrison.
Yeah,
know,
right?
Did you know they had to make like Val Kilmer wore special contact lenses to make his eyes more dilated when Jim Morrison was high? Like, who the fuck thinks of that?
Yump, did I start like a new thing?
What?
I've seen it. It's Cheeks.
Your new show. Cheeks.
Oh my god, Cheeks! Like, what's the Cheeks of the week?
Yeah, it's
no. I know this is like what you picked this one, Tony, but like I cannot.
No, I
seem
mean
to get
the thing about it is I think honestly, and this is my own opinion, I think Val Kilmer's performance in this is better. I mean, I just think him, the way he sounds at the time. Now I don't care what Ray Manzarek has to say. I'm just watching the movie here. It's like the same people who read comic books and tell me that that's not what it says in the comic book. I mean,
that's not a fair comparison because
Ray
Ray was actually in the band. He wasn't the dude that just read the comic books.
Yes, but like when I'm a movie viewer and I have never seen a comic book, I'm going to watch it to be entertained. And I'm not going over there going, well, this isn't really like that. So when I'm watching The Doors and I'm 11 or 12 years old, I'm not like, oh my God, the Doors are but I'm with you guys. I know it's not a great movie, and you've already given me what I wanted, that you guys said Scarface was better. So we can move on.
Oh my god. Yeah, let's move on.
See you, Baloney.
Right now, you're gonna listen to me. This is a crock of shit, man. No, he set you up, man, to conquer the world, and he didn't leave me shit. Nobody told you to throw your life away, man. I'm only sorry I didn't say something about you being drunk half the time. You did it to yourself. Listen to you coming in here like you own the whole goddamn country. To me, you're always gonna be that little asshole who followed me around in the sticks. Yeah, I followed you around, man. I followed you around because I thought you were somebody. Then
1987's La Bamba, directed by Luis Valdez, who also directed Zoot Suit, which is a playwright, and he also directed Cisco Kid, the TV movie. Not a lot of movies, but a lot of TV shows and plays. He's more known for Latino heritage plays, starring Lou Diamond Phillips, Cousin Roger, aka Isai Morales, Elizabeth Pena, Rosana Da Santo, Danielle Van Zerek, and Joe Pantoliano, aka Joey Pants. Box office of 6.5 million. No, box office of 54 million and a budget of 6.5 million. So tell me about La Bamba.
La Bamba is the definitive music biopic. This is my absolute favorite music biopic. This was a music that was very popular in the neighborhood that I grew up in on 23rd and Oakley. My cousin looks just like Bob. He looks just like Isai Morales. It was always a running joke in my family about that. I love this movie. I love this story. This story is heartbreaking, but Lou Diamond Phillips absolutely killed this role as Richie Valens. Joey Pants was absolutely brilliant, severely underrated. This is my absolute favorite music biopic and the gold standard of how I judge other music biopics. That's just me. Yump, how do you feel?
Totally agree. This is one of few music biopics I can constantly watch. Like I constantly watch. And that's because one, I'm a huge Lou Diamond Phillips mark. Like I love him. You know, Young Guns, but this is like pre Young Guns. So this is Lou showing his big thing out, Stand Deliver, some of my favorite movies. I love the way he portrays everything in here. It's you know, Richie Valens was I loved his music growing up, even though it was only out for 8 months, you know, but I listened to the stuff with my grandfather. Again, all this stuff goes back to the oldies days with my grandfather. I the Eastside Morales' character as Bob, like, it steals the show for me. It's so
It's
hilarious,
he's the
but yet
best.
tragic. But, like,
Yeah.
it's so great. And that's one of the reasons why I watch it is because of Bob. Like, it's just every time I see him, it's just comical. It also has, Rosana De Soto who, for Latino communities, if you saw she's in, like, a bunch of, like,
What's
80s, like, Latino movies.
What's the Christmas movie that you and I like with her in it?
That's Elizabeth Peña. That's,
Okay. But she's in it too, right?
No. She's in, Stand and Deliver. She plays, Edward James Olmos's wife. So she's in a lot of, like, in the 80s, that was kind of her casting thing. Elizabeth Peña plays Rosie in this
Right.
movie.
Rosie. Yeah, Rosie's the one that I'm talking about. But you're talking about his mom, right?
Yeah, his mom.
Yeah.
It's just everything about this movie I like. I like it, even it's really sad and the ending. But we all know what happens. Spoiler alert! If you haven't known, I don't know where you've been under a rock. But just before I go to Tony, just like how realism this movie was, and you say you judge it on your standard. The Valens family was actually there. The Venezuela family was actually there when this was being filmed. And the last scene where he's about to get on the plane, his sister, Richie Valens' real sister, broke down and ran to Lou Diamond Phillips and started grabbing him and telling him, please don't get on the plane, because she was throwing her back to when he was getting on the plane. Like, it's crazy, like, that movie, these scenes kind of recreated that for the family. But yeah, total classic. What do you think about this one, Tony?
This is the one that I was watching instead of the Buddy Holly story back then. I mean, I've watched La Bamba. It's, again, one of the first ones I've ever watched. It is, as you said, it is, well, it's the direct opposite of The Doors. It is 100% right down the line, musical biopic. And as you stated before, Richie Valens, man. I mean, really, really awesome. Really, really, really great music. And Don, I could listen to again all the time. But again, another story. And honestly, I would have went with this one, but I knew when you guys were going to pick this one. It's a what if, man. A what if, another what if in the music of what could have been. He was even, as young as Buddy Holly is. I mean, how old was he when he passed?
18.
18 years old. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I think he might have been 17.
He was young because I know his mom had to sign off for him to do things, but I think
he was 17 when he passed.
The story that I love from this is when when Bob takes him down to Mexico and he takes him out, but that's where he hears La Bamba as like a traditional like Mexican folk song, right? Or like a traditional song. And then he turns it into like this thing that became like, a massive hit for him. And I think that was really, really beautiful. And the other thing that he was torn, like he didn't know if he wanted to like change his name to be more popular. Like that was like a thing for him. I can't speak highly enough of this as a music biopic. This is my absolute favorite music biopic of all time.
And they kind of touch on that, like the aspect of whitewashing in a sense, because there's a scene where Joey Pants is in there with the radio DJ, and he's like, Valens, that's like, what does he say? Like Valens, what is he, like a Irish, something like Irish or something naming? He's like, how did you know? He's like, come on, man, he's from the barrio. We know that, man. The barrio. He's like, good stuff though, good stuff. And it's kind of crazy, like, and it's something that still happens today, how Latinos were changing their name. Like Martin Sheen is one of the biggest things he said he regrets is not using his real name as Martin Estevez.
Estevez, yeah. Well, and shout out to Emilio for like riding with it, like,
yeah,
so
that's it's still something that goes on today. But I do like that aspect of how they touched on that, and he was one of the first Latino stars to come out, even though it was for such a short time, to make those hits. I just really like this movie. It's just too many good things. And going back to what we talked about with the coin toss, you know, one of the major factors to that happening was not just the bus; it was the whole tour in general. The winter tour was they were overworked and they were tired, and
It was like cursed.
so they basically that had a lot to do with them trying to take that charter plane. Buddy Holly really wanted to get to Fargo because he had dirty laundry and he wanted to go to a dry cleaner before the show so he could have some fresh clothes because they were so far behind and overworked. He didn't have time to get his clothes washed. You know, Phillips by the guitarist for Buddy Holly. Was it? Yeah, but guitarist for one of his band did the coin flip with Richie, and when he lost, Big Bopper like just fucking with him was like, "Oh man, I hope your bus freezes now." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I hope your plane crashes." And then when it happened, like he couldn't get over the fact that he told him that for most of his life. That's something that stuck with. I remember watching VH1's Behind the Music. And they had him on,
Yeah.
and he was still talking about how it impacted him every day to think he said something to a horrible, like something that's a joke, but something so horrible that it ended up coming true.
Yeah.
And this is the day everybody says the day music died, and the Beatles brought him back in '69. This is the day that rock and roll basically went away, which is crazy.
Definitely agree.
Perfect music biopic.
Great movie.
All right, man. Going to our next one.
Hey, we'll buy you a new one.
Yeah, let us
Real
get you a
money.
new one.
No,
We'll buy you one.
Let's polish it, dude.
What can we do? Do you need a new one?
Are you kidding me, man? This bumper. This bumper's gonna go on the wall of my garage, carnal. I'm gonna put a little sign under it. It's gonna say, "This bumper was pulled off by the bus of Salinas." ¿Verdad, tú? Hey, you like that? Like, see? I mean, anything for Salinas. See?
Thanks.
1997, Selena, directed by Gregory Nava, who directed Border Town, My Family, Tale of Destiny, and El Norte. Starring Jennifer Lopez, Edward James Olmos, John Seda, Constance Marie, Jackie Guerra, and Lupe Alberteros. Budget of $20 million and a box office of 37.5. Tony, tell me about Selena.
Selena, another really, I think, great under the radar biopic on a really great musician that I think needs a little bit more, and especially Jennifer Lopez. You got Edward James Olmos, who I love Edward James Olmos and everything from Blade Runner to he was really good on the spinoff to Sons of Anarchy, Mayans. He was like the dad on that show. I've always been a big fan, but really good movie. As you stated, another awful tale, gone too soon. Really watched this one again right when it came out. So this wasn't one that took me a while because, it was, I'm a little upset by looking at the box office without looking at it. I thought it would have done a lot better than it really did. But great movie though.
Well,
if La Bamba is number one on the list of fantastic music biopics, this is easily number two. Like, this is a fantastic movie. Jennifer Lopez, I think, was fantastic in this movie. This was a great introduction to music that I probably wouldn't have heard or been into. I was already out of the neighborhood when this movie came out. I think this is a great movie. I think that, I think the audio clip that you played is a clip that people that like this movie know very, very well. I love this movie. Yeah, this is a great music biopic. What about you, Yump?
So La Bamba is going to be probably my favorite one. This was fine. I don't think it's one of the greatest. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Jennifer Lopez's acting. She kind of annoys me, and I think there's a lot of corniness around with John Seda's character as Chris, even though I love him, but just
Did you ever see her movie with Oliver Stone?
U-Turn?
Yeah.
Of course I've seen it, dude. It's a trip, bro.
It's a good movie.
It's a good movie. It's not like The Doors.
No, I know it is. It's a lot better than The Doors. I love U-Turn.
I hear you with the corniness of it, but I think that's also one of the things that makes it endearing.
Mhm.
It's corny, the whole haircut and makeover scene with with him getting into the band and then trashing the hotel room and Edward James almost scolding him and almost kicking him out. But it's endearing, man. And I think that this is probably more tragic than like some of the other stories that we've heard, right? Like maybe not La Bamba or Buddy Holly because that also was out of their control, but she didn't overdose in a bathtub in Paris. She didn't like she didn't have a bunch of, unprotected sex. Like this stuff was out of her control. Like she was killed by a crazy, like someone that she thought was part of her family and was the head of her fan club. So I think this one's a little bit more tragic, but it's just me, man. Like, but I think this is a really, really good representation of trying to tell a story.
Yeah, I can see that aspect of it. One of the things that sticks out to me is uh you chose a Puerto Rican actress to play a Mexican actress, which is to me it's fine. But at the time you have to understand, like when growing up, like being from the South Side, Selena was like huge. Like Selena y Los Dinos was huge when I grew up. Like everybody I knew on my block talked about it. Like when this movie was coming out, like one of my friend's sisters went and auditioned for young Selena. Like this is like a big thing, at least around the Mexican community. And when that first came out that Jennifer Lopez was gonna play her, a lot of backlash came out. I think that as an actress, you can go both ways in terms of Latino. You can be, you have to be specifically to that ethnicity, but it was just kind of thing strange that they chose a Puerto Rican to play a Mexican actress. Go ahead, Swa. I'm sorry, cut you off.
I get no, and I get completely what you're saying, and you and I talk all the time about how fucking representation matters, right? And someone that was so iconic in the Mexican community, right? Not just the Hispanic community, because that's a bigger umbrella, but more specifically the Mexican community. Like I understand that completely. Like I still think Jennifer Lopez did a great job in this movie, but I get how representation is important for roles like this.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not the thing. I think she did a fine job. It's just like I thought reading about the backlash, and I remember experiencing it, like because a lot of people like, oh, because she was unknown at this time.
Yeah, like
and
this
then
was
Mhm.
this was a massive role for her.
Yeah, she got paid. She made the most for any Latina in film, $1 million for this role, which is ridiculous. At the time, it was like she was making $1 million, which is more people should have got paid that Latin roles. But I digress. But the crazy thing is, and Jennifer Lopez denies this, even though it's come out as fact that they originally wanted Salma Hayek to play Selena, and Salma Hayek turned down the role because one, she wanted to do Frida in the future, but two, she thought it was too soon to do a movie on Selena because she's like her family's still grieving. It's a little too early to do a biopic on her, so she passed on it. And Jennifer Lopez got pissed about this coming out and was like, "No, that never happened." But people have said, this is from the director and Abraham himself has said that they approached her first, which I thought was crazy. But I couldn't see her doing it. You know how much I love Salma Hayek. I couldn't see her doing this role.
I know you love her.
Also, Rob Reiner was asked to direct this movie. I'm glad he didn't.
Me too.
I love Rob Reiner, but I don't think he could have captured the essence of this. And Chris Perez does make an appearance in this movie. You guys know where?
No.
So when John Cena's character is auditioning, that's actually Chris Perez playing.
Oh, cool.
So he's actually the one playing. So they asked him, "Can you play?" Because John Cena don't know how to play the guitar, and he's like, "Yeah, that's all him." So he was
That's awesome.
He was doing the actual chords and everything was all him, which I thought was pretty crazy.
Very awesome.
It's not the top of my movies, but I'll watch it. I mean, my dad used to watch this movie all the time. Like,
yeah, I get it.
But I mean, it's okay. I everything for Selena's thing, the washing machine. Show her the washing machine.
Sure, the washing machine. No, yeah, come on. I know you can say it right. Say it how Edward James almost.
That's what he says. He's like, show her the washing machine.
The watching machine. Yeah.
And then when she goes to the part that cracks me is when she goes to the Spanish media and she's like, muy excited. I was like, but that's
there's some corny parts. No, there's some corny parts in here for sure. Like the makeover and the bumper scene and like the dancing scene, but like I don't know. I thought
it also shows how in Tejano, like women musicians, like there's a part where I can't forget his name. He's in Born in East LA and he's in Price of Glory. Sal Lopez, where he tells Abraham, she's a woman, what do you expect? And it's just that was true. Like women weren't paid as much as men. So I mean, it's groundbreaking in that way. It made Jennifer Lopez who she is, like she can always look back at Selena as launching her, and then she did her own singing, which is horrible. In 2
Well,
years,
I don't understand like the thought process behind like you get a stack of scripts and like that's the route she wants. Like Selena was good, and then she did like she was in U-Turn, right? Like we talked about, and she was in The Cell, and then she just does romantic comedies, Made in Manhattan, The Wedding Plan, like it's just yeah.
yeah, that portray her as a nice person, and in reality, everybody who works for her says she's complete
Right.
which is crazy.
It's because she's
But
got a big ass. Like
yeah,
it's yeah.
yeah, it's gone to her head. But yeah, if you haven't seen this one, Spags, I think you would enjoy this one, Spags, since you
I
haven't
think
watched
Spags
it.
would like it. Yeah.
It's a good movie to watch.
Yeah.
So definitely check it out.
Yeah.
But that's our movies we picked. The 8 we picked that were good. So Swole actually asked us something interesting to pick some of them that belong in the fucking trash. Selena, yes.
Anything
And
for Salinas.
and I'm gonna go with my movie I picked. There's gonna be no sound clip for this one because it doesn't deserve it.
Nope.
Is the Great Balls of Fire, released in 1989, with Dennis Quaid playing the role of Jerry Lee Lewis, and you have Winona Ryder
As his
and
cousin.
as his cousin,
As his cousin
and
wife.
lover.
Yeah, his cousin and wife.
That whole premise is like, fuck this. I watched this. It's like him not caring about what the public thinks about that, which I thought, yeah, you can't. It's still wrong, no matter how many years the
It's
future.
trash.
It's Choose 13. It's a horrible movie. I
Well-
don't like the way he's. Even though Jerry sings everything in this biopic, even he hated it. Which I mean, you should hate it, but it's to me, it's just bad. I mean,
I
have you
didn't
guys
pick
seen
it
this one?
because I knew one of you guys were going to pick it. I just had this feeling.
Yeah, I can't do this. Like, I remember when Swole asked me, like, because I don't watch that many biopics on anything. He's like, "Have you seen any biopics that?" I'm like, "Yes, I have one." Like,
He did.
Great Balls of
He did.
Fire was
Great Balls
fucking
of Fire.
horrible.
I seen this
yeah.
movie. I seen this movie once. My dad rented it. I watched it because I always try to get whatever new movies he rented and watch after it. It's ass cheeks, bro. Like it's cheeks.
Also, like, Dennis Quaid looks horrible as Jerry Lee
It
Lewis.
that's really, I mean,
It's
the
like-
cousin stuff, him playing, just all bad.
Well, and it's like the first version of like the Step Brothers quote, "You curly headed fuck." Like it's not for me. I'm good on this one. I'm good on Great Balls of Fire. I'm good on all three of these, really. Well, one of them I thought was okay.
Wow. Yeah, Brian, there's no way. If you think The Crow is a bad movie, but you
Right,
think this is good,
right.
get the
Like
hell out of
you, I got to take your opinion and just push that to the side if you think this is a great movie.
Ultimate Warrior doesn't like it either. So, Swole, let's go with your pick next.
Yeah, so I picked Notorious with the cast. It had some good cast, but I thought that the portrayal of Notorious B.I.G. was cheeks. This was a cheeks movie, bro. It was corny. I didn't care for it. I think Derek Luke was really, really fucking good at Antoine Fisher, and then he's just played corny roles since then. As Diddy, as Puff, in this movie. I love Biggie. I love his music. This was not for me. Total cheeks.
How about you, Tony? What do you think about this one?
It's it's a couple levels lower than the great Straight Outta Compton. So like immediately, you're like, this is closer to B. To me, it was closer to B movie than it was, A+ movie. And there's been a couple biopics. Like there was a recent one where Tom Hiddleston's playing Hank Williams Jr. And I mean, I love Tom Hiddleston as Loki and other characters, but just not cast right. And this one was definitely like that for me.
The other one that could have been included or lumped in with this was All Eyes on Me, the Tupac biopic.
That's funny because doesn't the guy who plays Tupac in here? Oh, Anthony Mackie.
No, Anthony Mackie plays Tupac in this. The guy that plays Tupac in All Eyes on Me like looks like Tupac, but like it's.
Wait, wasn't he in? He was in. Was he Tupac in Brad Compton?
No, that was a different guy too. It was like three guys in three different guys in three different movies.
I just swore like one of them was
Suge Knight played the guy that played Suge Knight in All Eyes on Me and Straight Outta Compton and like the VH1 movie about Tupac. But Tupac was different in all three movies. This movie sucks. Notorious sucks.
I was not a fan of this movie. I just so George Tillman, who directed this movie, directed one of the movies I really like a lot, which is Men of Honor with Cuba Gooding Jr., Robert De Niro. And when I saw this, I'm like, and I saw this when I was working at the county. So the kids saw that when I see that, I'm like, this movie is not good. The funny thing is, when I was reading about this, because I want to do some like see what other people thought about this movie's full, and Lil Kim hated this movie so much, she tried to have Jamal Woodard, who plays Biggie, beat up. Also, since we're Sopranos guys, how there's a scene, there's actually a running storyline where Bobby Bacala goes with this rapper who pays him to shoot him in
the ass. It's Stretch from Naughty by Nature.
No, actually, it's based off this guy, Jamal Woodard, who claimed to fame was having a friend shoot him in the buttocks in order to boost his career, a la 50 Cent.
But the actor was Stretch from Naughty by Nature.
Yeah. But it's based off him, this guy who plays Biggie, which I think is hilarious.
It's really corny.
But I didn't like it. I think the ending is kind of stupid, where they're dancing around to hypnotize his grave.
Right.
Funeral. I'm like, what the hell?
What the hell?
But I wish they would have made a better one. But I understand why it came out.
I think the same thing that you talked about with Selena, like it's kind of too soon. Like maybe like I don't know. Biggie's been gone since 1997, but maybe it was still a little too soon.
So there was a movie that was supposed to come out with Sylvester Stallone. I think Johnny Depp
did it, but it's not about Biggie. It was just about the murder trials and the investigation.
Right, Russell Pohl. Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish they would have made that feature film. I think it was a series on TV, or a TV movie. But I wish they would have made, because that was something that was in development for a while.
The Johnny Depp movie was released last year. Finally, I think it's on Amazon. It's really bad.
Yeah. Is it really? I was hoping.
When you see those movies and they keep getting pushed and they're pushed and they're pushed, sometimes there's a reason.
What was the last good thing Johnny Depp did? Like
Black Mass.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what, years now, right? Like 2017, 2018.
Black Mass was in, I don't know. I have to look it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really didn't like this one. Amadeus. So Amadeus was on my list. 2015, thank you. Amadeus was actually on my list. But we only cut it to 8 movies, Brian. So but Amadeus is another movie that I watched actually in high school. We actually did a film study of it. But Amadeus is another F. Murray Abraham.
Tom Hulce.
Yes, Tom Hulce. It's a very good movie, and it also sprung that song Amadeus. Rock Me Amadeus, which got sampled by the Bloodhound Gang.
Yes.
But Tony, let's get to your dumpster fire movie.
Shitty pick, yeah.
Okay, the reason why I picked this one, I don't like the musical biopics where they're singing, like, this is my, like, the way you described the Doors movie, this is my description of this, is like, I wanted it to be more like Bohemian Rhapsody, more straight story, maybe plays the songs. I don't like the fantasy offshoots. It's too cheesy, but I mean, the acting and everything is good in it.
Taron Egerton's great. Like, I thought he was perfect. Like, I thought he was perfect in it. But I get
more just of those type of movies in the biopics. And this
was more of a fantasy movie. This wasn't like and it even says in the movie poster, like, based on a true fantasy, not like a true story. I totally get what you're saying about this. I like the movie, but I wish it was more of a biopic, not a fantasy movie. Very similar to like and I guess it was, but like Across the Universe, right? Like, which I thought was great because it wasn't trying to be a Beatles biopic.
No,
but it was a very fantasy movie.
I mean, Great Balls of Fire was the one I was going to pick. That was the only one I could really come up with. And then what I was thinking of is not really this movie being bad, but just kind of like what you just described. But then again, this is again the same director who, I think he finished up that Bohemian Rhapsody, and then he did. Because Bryan Singer, I don't think, finished Bohemian Rhapsody.
No, he just sexually harassed everybody on the set.
Yeah, and then this guy did such a good job. I think the last 2 weeks that they gave him Rocket Man, which it did well. I mean, it did fine.
I mean, Kelly and I went to go see it at the movie theater, and we liked it. But
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, it would probably have been better if I saw it on the big screen because of it being loud and you could see it all, the visuals. When I watched it on the small screen and then I'm kind of turning away, it just, but for all of these, I like them all. So like I like every music biopic just a little bit in some way. So
I get it. I completely get it.
This movie was okay. I thought it was. Yeah, I watching it, rewatching it. I've seen it twice now. I think it's trying to play off of Bohemian Rhapsody, and Bohemian Rhapsody was, and like it had its flaws. It wasn't a perfect movie. I think this was just trying to recapture what that was.
Yeah.
Elton John is a very interesting character, and I do see where you guys are saying this is kind of like living more fantasy. But like I said, well, most biopics they're kind of doing that in general. I wish they would stick more to. I mean, real life is not as interesting as people think it is sometimes, so that's why I have to add in that stuff.
Yeah.
But when it comes to somebody that's like prolific, like as him, I would like them to add in a little more realism into it.
Yeah. I mean, his story is depressing though. Like,
Yeah, it's
like,
definitely.
that story
He's
was-
so interesting though. Like,
Yeah.
like even you come out, when he came out, you say he was, homosexual. That was like,
Wait, Elton John's gay?
yeah, but I mean that was like one of the biggest like things because he was Elton fucking John, man. Like, but I don't know. It's okay. I don't think it was the greatest. I don't think it was the worst. I thought Brave Balls of Fire was like the worst fucking movie I've ever seen.
I think okay is the best description that you could give this movie. It was okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It wasn't good. It was okay.
No.
Yeah. But yeah, that's our shitty movies. Brian, you already said you hated The Doors. Spags, no love for Spinal Tap because Spinal Tap's not a biopic.
That's also why we didn't include 8 Mile. Like,
yes,
it's essentially about Eminem, but he plays a character named Jimmy.
Jimmy, yeah.
Yeah,
Rabbit.
like B Rabbit. So like, but yeah. Yeah.
But Tony, thank you so much for coming out, my man.
You guys.
These past 2 hours flew through.
It was fun conversation for someone that doesn't like biopics, Yump.
yes, it was.
Yeah.
But you want to plug your stuff, my man?
Yeah, thank you so much, guys, for having me. It was awesome. You could catch me on the Hookup on Music. We are generally dropping those generally on Thursday or Friday. This week we've got somebody who wrote a book about a gentleman who helped influence Prince. So that will be coming Thursday. That's going to be good. And pretty soon here, I've been working diligently behind the scenes. Svo's going to join me for this punk rock countdown that we got. And that'll be coming up pretty soon too. But just check out that. And, thank you so much, guys. Always a blast.
No problem. Can you drop your socials where they can follow you at?
Yeah, you can always find me at the Sugar Baggy. On the Twitter, you can always find the Hookup on Music on the Twitter, or you can find us always on the Instagram too at the Hookup on Music. My wife does all of the Instagram stuff for that, and also the Hookup on Film, and she's a better writer than me and anyone else who's part of anything that I'm a part of. So check that out. Thank you.
No problem, my dude.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Thanks for coming on, my man.
No problem. Thank you.
Take it easy.
Take care.
Cool. So yeah, be sure to check out the Hookup on Music and the Hookup on Film. I was actually a guest on the Hookup on Music. It's a good nice, it's a short pod and it's actually really, really entertaining. I know Soul, you're gonna have a real good time with
yeah,
because Tony knows his shit and it's like just talking like we talk on about movies every week.
That dude knows his shit.
But let's get into just a quick plug. We at Yumper and Soul are doing a ticket giveaway to the Chicago White Sox game this summer. The way you enter is basically going to our website or going on our pinned tweet about the ALS walk that my mom will be participating in. There are instructions in that tweet that takes us to our website and it explains all you have to do is donate, whether it be $1, 50 cents under my mom's name to that walk, and just show us a screenshot of it. Every little bit counts. You'll be entered into a draft, a raffle basically. When we draw, I'll probably draw within the next month or so to a future White Sox game, which includes 2 tickets in the section 108. You might see the drunk uncles there. You got stadium club passes and free parking. So you're getting a nice little, and it'll be to a decent game. So it won't be to like a Monday, Tuesday game, unless that's what you want.
That's a whole ass night out, Yump.
Yes. Yes. So Be sure to check that out, guys. We had a couple people already donate. Roxy, Lucky Spag, thank you so much. Every little bit counts, and like I said, it's for a good cause if you can. But be sure to check out our Twitter at Yumper and Svo. It's the pinned tweet there, or you can check us out at the Sadistic Penguin Studios website where it's actually posted there as well. And with that, we have a big day tomorrow. Swole, why don't you tell everybody about it?
Yeah, so tomorrow, obviously all of us met because of White Sox Twitter, and we partnered up with Chicago Sports Bums. Four fucking amazing guys. I forgot Dougie Fresh is the newest member of the Chicago Sports Bums. And we're having a tailgate tomorrow. The Penguins and the Bums in Lot B. We're going to be there right when the lots open. They pushed the game time back. Or they pushed it forward a little bit. It starts at 2:10 now instead of 3:10. And we're going to be grilling up some food, having some drinks. The drinks are on us, hanging out, bullshitting, and just having a good time before the White Sox take on the San Francisco Giants. We're going to see Michael Kopech pitch tomorrow. Is it Kopech?
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, we're really, really excited for that. And come out and have a drink on us and hang out with us before the Sox game.
Yeah, come out, support the Bums. We partner with them. The Bums are great guys. We just wanted to help them out with
Super easy to work with.
Yeah, super easy to work with. They're great dudes. They're gonna have their whiskey there for P1 listeners of the show. Just come and hang out with us. It'll be before the game. All of us want to meet you guys. It's a good segue into the start of the summer. So be sure to check them out and check them out other stuff at the Chicago Sports Bums. They got some good stuff over there. If you learn about whiskey, you learn about sports and whatnot every Monday night at 9:00. Descafani for the Giants is starting tomorrow. When you're Brian, thank you, Brian. Kopech and Descafani. And Shane, I know you're asking that you want a shirt of that Statistic Bums logo. Maybe it might be in the future. We don't know yet.
Maybe. Who knows?
The Bums are playing hardball. No.
You don't really think the Sox will win, do you?
I don't know. But yeah, with that, we're going to talk about our coming soon. So next week, guys, is Easter. So we are going to take the week off. There's too much going on. Then the week after that, we'll probably be back either Sunday or Saturday, depending on school schedule. With the White Sox games coming up, the White Sox are in town, so we might pull Sunday. Probably, we'll both be at the game, so we'll probably pull Sunday night. But we'll keep you posted. Check out our Twitter accounts at Lil Yumper, at Doughboy Soul, and at Yumper and Soul to find out the actual time and what day we're going to go through everything.
And the topic.
Yes.
Yep.
We have some topics in the can. We just don't want to announce it yet because things can change. But yeah, be sure to check that out. This episode will drop tomorrow for those who are watching on the YouTube version. I'll have this out before we go to the White Sox game. So if you want to listen to it on the game, way to the game or whatnot, or you guys go back to work on Tuesday, be sure to check that out. And I know I'm running through this. I just want to keep it under 2 hours. So
I know, me too. I'm like, yup, let's get under that 2 hour mark.
Yeah. So let's push it over to Swole's final thought.
Man, I don't have a lot to say this week. This was a really fun episode. Tony is always a fucking fantastic guest. The Doors pick was a little bit weird because that movie's ass cheeks, but no, I know what he was doing. He's a good dude. I really, really like what he's doing with the Hookup on film and the Hookup on music. There's so many great podcasts out there on White Sox Twitter. Listen to them if you can, if you're into that stuff. If not, just go on about your business. We'll see you at the ballpark. And we love you guys. Deuces.
Deuces.